In the quiet little town of Havenport, where the mist hangs low over the water like a sleepy blanket, lived a man named Silas. He wasn't your ordinary fisherman. While others hauled in nets heavy with cod and mackerel, Silas's nets came up shimmering with something else entirely. He was the fisherman who caught memories. It started subtly. One morning, pulling in his net, he felt a strange warmth, a flicker of light that wasn't the sun. As he untangled the mesh, a scene played out in his mind. A young boy's first bicycle ride, the scrape on his knee, the proud smile of his father. Silas shook his head, blaming the early hour and the lack of coffee. But the next day, it happened again. This time, it was the bittersweet taste of a farewell kiss at a train station, the steam cloud in a tear-streaked face. Soon, Silas realized his nets were no longer catching fish. They were catching moments lost to time, strands of a wedding song, the scent of a grandmother's freshly baked bread, the sting of a harsh word spoken in anger, the thrill of a first love's glance. He'd sit on his small, weathered boat, the sea whisper, and sift through these ethereal treasures. Each memory was a jewel, a tiny, perfect universe of emotion. He felt the joy of 100 birthdays, the sorrow of 1,000 goodbyes. His cottage, once smelling of salt and fish, now held a different scented complex perfume of laughter, tears, and old secrets. He stopped selling at the market. How could he? What price could you put on a soldier's memory of returning home, or a mother's first look at her newborn child? He lived on these memories. They were his food, his drink, his companions. When hunger gnawed at his belly, he would simply pull a memory from the era-lavish banquet. The taste of spiced wine and roasted meats so vivid he felt full. When loneliness crept in, he'd immerse himself in a memory of a raucous family gathering, the warmth of belonging chasing away the chill. The townsfolk began to notice. Silas grew thin, his eyes holding a distant, ancient look. He's lost his mind to the sea, they'd whisper. He just sits in his boat, smiling at nothing. They saw a gaunt man in tattered clothes, but Silas saw himself as the richest man alive. He was a king reigning over an empire of moments. He relived first steps, final words, secret hopes, and devastating regrets. He was everyone and no one, living 1,000 lives while his own slipped away. One day, a young girl named Alara, whose laughter used to echo on the docks, came to his cottage. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with a worry that seemed heavy for her small frame. "Murdoch Silas," she said softly, "my grandmother. She doesn't remember me anymore. She doesn't remember her own stories." Silas looked at the child, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a pang of something real, something that wasn't borrowed. He realized what he had done. He had been so engrossed in hoarding the past that he had been starving the town of its own history. The memories he caught weren't ownerless. They were fragments drifting from the minds of his neighbors. He was a thief, not a king. He had been feasting on the town's collective soul, leaving them empty and forgetful. The old storyteller forgot her tales. The baker forgot his mother's recipes. Lovers forgot the day they first met. Havenport was becoming a town of ghosts, living in a present disconnected from its past. That evening, with a heavy heart, Silas rowed the sea whisper out to the center of the bay. He looked at his hands, callous from ropes, but now thin and pale. He had lived on the echoes of life for so long. He'd almost forgotten how to live himself. He cast his net one last time, but this time, he wasn't trying to catch anything. As the net sank, he began to release the memories he held. He started with the small ones, the taste of a stranger's birthday cake, the feeling of winning a childhood race. Then came the bigger ones, the joy of a wedding he never attended, the grief for a person he never knew. He let go of the first loves, the heartbreaking farewells, the triumphant returns. He released it all back into the sea, a shimmering torrent of light and sound and feeling, a ghostly roar under the waves. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. It felt like he was starving himself, giving away his only source of sustenance. An immense emptiness washed over him, more profound than any hunger he'd ever felt. Back on the shore, something miraculous happened. The old storyteller suddenly paused, then smiled, and began a tale she thought she'd forgotten. The baker hummed a tune, his hands moving with an old, familiar rhythm as he kneaded dough. A young man looked at his wife and remembered the awkward, beautiful moment he first asked her to dance. The town was waking up, its colors returning. Silas returned to his cottage, which now felt cold and bare. The hunger was real, the loneliness sharp, but as he sat by his empty fireplace, there was a knock on the door. It was Alara, holding a steamy bowl of fish stew. Grandma remembered her recipe. She said, her smile bright. She said to bring you some. Silas took the bowl, the warmth spreading through his cold hands. The smell was simple, just fish and potatoes and herbs, but it was real. He took a spoonful. It wasn't a memory of a feast. It was food. It was nourishment. He looked at Alara, at the genuine warmth in her eyes, and felt a connection that was more fulfilling than any memory he had ever caught. From that day on, Silas became a fisherman again. He caught cod and mackerel, his nets heavy with the wriggling, silver bounty of the sea. He sold his fish at the market, talking and laughing with the townsfolk, sharing stories, his own stories. He learned that while the past is a beautiful sea to visit, you can't live there. Holding on to the past can feed your mind and soul for a time, but it will always, eventually, starve your future. True sustenance doesn't come from reliving old moments. It comes from creating new ones. He was no longer a king of borrowed memories. He was just Silas, a fisherman, part of the here and now, and for the first time in a long time, he was truly full.